My cousin, who handles my finances, insists my memory is failing when I question missing withdrawals, until I find her luxury car purchase in my bank statements. They say grief changes you, but I never thought it'd make me question my own mind. My name is Ellen, and 3 years ago, my life unraveled in ways I never imagined. My husband, Tom, my partner of 38 years, passed away after a sudden heart attack. He was my everything, the one who balanced our checkbook, fixed the leaky sink, and made me laugh with his terrible puns, even on the darkest days. His absence left a hole so vast I couldn't see the edges. At 62, retired from teaching, I was drowning in grief and a mountain of paperwork. Bills stacked up on the kitchen counter, unopened. Insurance forms, bank statements, taxes. It was a foreign language, and I was too broken to learn it. That's when my cousin Liana stepped into my life like a beacon. Liana was a force of nature, charismatic, confident, always dressed like she was headed to a board meeting. She'd sweep into my house with her leather planner, her perfect smile, and say, "Ellen, you don't need to worry. I'll handle this." And I let her, gratefully. She sorted my utility bills, called the insurance company, even deciphered the fine print on Tom's life insurance policy. It felt like a miracle, like someone had thrown me a lifeline. I'd brew coffee, and we'd sit at my kitchen table, her tapping away on her laptop, me nodding, clinging to her competence. For the first time in months, I could breathe, even if just a little. I trusted her completely. We were family after all. As kids, we'd spent summers at Lake Willow, giggling over ghost stories, braiding each other's hair, promising to always have each other's backs. Liana was the cousin who'd drive 2 hours to help you move, who'd call just to gossip about old neighbors. She'd always been there, through my wedding, Tom's cancer scare, my retirement party. How could I doubt her? But looking back, there were cracks in her perfect facade, tiny signs I missed because my heart was too heavy to notice. I remember the first time something felt off. I found a late notice for my electric bill, bright red and threatening, tucked under a pile of mail. I asked Liana about it, confused. She laughed, a soft, reassuring sound, and said, "Oh, Ellen, we talked about this last week. Don't you remember? It's all sorted." I didn't remember. My cheeks burned with embarrassment, and I nodded, pretending I did. A few weeks later, I found a receipt in my purse for a $300 dinner at a fancy restaurant I'd never visited. When I showed it to Liana, she waved it off with a flick of her wrist. "Must be a mix-up, Ellen. I'll take care of it." Her voice was so calm, so certain. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But those moments kept piling up, like pebbles in a jar. I'd ask about a missing payment, and she'd say we'd already discussed it. I'd mention a phone call, and she'd give me this look. Pity, maybe concern. "Ellen," she'd say, her voice soft as velvet. "You've been through so much, it's normal to be a little forgetful." Her words sank into me like stones, heavy and cold. I started to wonder if I was losing my memory, maybe even my mind. Grief does that, doesn't it? Makes you question everything. Liana was so kind, so so helpful, always there with an answer, a solution, a smile. I leaned on her harder, pushed down the uneasy feeling in my gut that whispered something wasn't right. Every night, I'd sit on the couch, holding Tom's old sweater, breathing in the fading scent of his cologne. I'd ask myself if this was what he'd want. Me, falling apart, relying on someone else to keep my life together. But Liana's voice was louder than my own. She'd call every day, her tone warm but insistent, offering to take on more, saying she was worried about me. "You're not alone, Ellen," she'd say. "I've got you." I thought it was love. I thought it was family. Family's supposed to be your safe place, right? When you're sinking in grief, you don't question the hand pulling you out. You just grab it and hold on. But there were moments that gnawed at me, like the time I found a credit card statement with a $500 charge at a jewelry store. I don't wear much jewelry, never have. When I asked Liana, she smiled and said, "Oh, that was a gift for you, Ellen. I was going to surprise you." I felt guilty for questioning her, but the gift never came, or the time my car insurance lapsed because the payment slipped through the cracks, according to Liana. She apologized, fixed it, but the unease lingered. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why I felt so lost in my own life. One afternoon, Liana sat me down at the kitchen table, her planner open, her pen tapping lightly. "Ellen, this would be so much easier if I had full access to your accounts, just to streamline things, you know?" My stomach twisted. Something, maybe Tom's voice in my head, whispered, "Wait." I hesitated, my hand hovering over the form she'd slid toward me. Liana's eyes locked on mine, steady and warm. "You trust me, don't you?" she said, her voice like honey. I signed, and that's when the ground beneath me started to crumble. Have you ever trusted someone so much that you ignored your own gut feeling? Maybe it was a friend, a partner, a family member. Did you push down that little voice warning you? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious how many of us have been there. Giving Liana full access didn't make things easier, it made them worse, like a slow poison seeping into my life. Bills went unpaid. Despite Liana's promises, I'd get angry red notices about overdrafts, duplicate payments, fees I didn't understand. When I asked her about them, she'd tilt her head, her voice soft but firm. "Ellen, we already discussed this. You approved it, remember?" But I didn't. Or did I? Doubt crept in like a fog, clouding every thought, every memory. I'd replay our conversations, trying to pin down what was real. But her words slipped through my fingers like sand. I bought a small notebook, a cheap spiral-bound thing, to track our talks. I thought it would anchor me, keep my mind from slipping. I'd jot down things like, "Asked Liana about water bill. She said it's paid." Or, "Liana said the mortgage is fine." But then a shut-off notice would arrive, or the bank would call about a missed payment. I'd show Liana my notes, my hands trembling, and she'd sigh, her eyes full of pity. "You must have misunderstood, Ellen. I'll fix it. Don't worry." My notebook said one thing, her words said another. I'd sit up late, staring at the pages, wondering if I'd written them wrong, if my own hand was betraying me. Liana's control tightened like a noose. She started telling our family I was slipping, her voice dripping with concern. At a family barbecue, I overheard her whispering to my sister, Carol, "Ellen's not herself. Grief's hitting her hard. I'm worried she's losing it." Her words were a performance, staged for maximum effect. My nephew Jake, only 25, but with a heart too big for his lanky frame, pulled me aside later. "Aunt Ellen, are you okay? Liana says you're forgetting things, like, a lot." His brow was furrowed, his voice so gentle it broke my heart. I mumbled that I was fine, but his question planted a seed of fear. Maybe I was deteriorating. Maybe I couldn't trust my own mind. I started avoiding family gatherings, dreading their worried glances, their hushed conversations. I'd catch myself staring at old photos of Tom and me, laughing at our wedding, hiking in the mountains, planting tulips in our backyard, wondering if he'd recognize the woman I'd become, so unsure, so small. Liana's words became my truth. "You're not yourself." I stopped calling my best friend, Marie, stopped going to book club, stopped leaving the house unless I had to. I didn't want anyone to see me like this, a shadow of who I used to be. I'd lie awake at night, replaying every conversation with Liana, every look, every sigh. Was I imagining things? Was I really forgetting? She was so sure, so steady, always ready with an explanation. And I was a mess, unraveling thread by thread. I stopped trusting myself. That's the worst part, when you start to believe the person tearing you down, when their voice drowns out your own. I need to pause here and thank you for sticking with my story. It's taken weeks of digging deep, sifting through pain and shame, to put this into words. If it's hitting home for you, even just a little, please consider subscribing. It's free for you, but it means the world to someone like me who's poured hours into sharing this truth. One day, I was sorting through my email, looking for a confirmation for a doctor's appointment. I almost missed it. A misdirected message from the bank. Just a single line about a transaction. I don't know why I clicked it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was Tom's voice in my head. But that click changed everything. Would you start questioning yourself if someone close kept insisting your memory was failing? Would you believe them? Or would you fight to hold on to your truth? Tell me below. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just wanted to find that email. But when I logged into my bank account, I saw it. Charges I didn't recognize. A trail of transactions that made my stomach drop. Hundreds at a luxury boutique called La Perle. Thousands at a place called Elite Motors. Smaller charges, too. Spas, restaurants, a $1,200 airline ticket. My heart pounded, a drum beat in my chest. I clicked through, my hands shaking so bad I could barely move the mouse. Then I saw it, $68,000 for a luxury SUV. I don't even drive SUVs. My old sedan's been fine for years. I called the bank, my voice trembling, barely holding it together. The clerk was patient, giving me the VIN number. I looked it up online, my fingers fumbling on the keyboard. And there it was, registered to Liana Marie Thompson, my cousin. It hit me like a tidal wave, crashing through every wall I'd built to protect myself. Every moment I'd brushed aside, every doubt I'd ignored. The $300 dinner I didn't eat, the jewelry I never received, the bills that went unpaid despite her promises, the conversations I knew I hadn't forgotten. It wasn't me, it was her. All this time she'd been stealing from me, lying to me, making me think I was losing my mind. And she did it while I was grieving the love of my life. I sat there, staring at the screen, tears streaming down my face. Betrayal, heartbreak, guilt, they swirled together, choking me. How could I have been so blind? Liana was family, the one who held my hand at Tom's funeral, who promised to take care of me. She was supposed to protect me. Instead, she'd preyed on my pain, twisted my grief into a weapon. I felt like a fool, like I'd failed Tom, failed myself. I thought she was helping me hold it together, but all this time she was robbing me blind. I want to hear from you. If you found out a trusted relative used your money to buy a $68,000 luxury car, how would you react? Would it be anger, shock, sadness? Comment your first emotion below. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I invited Liana over, made coffee, and waited. I needed to see her face when I showed her the truth. My hands were steady as I set out the mugs, but inside, I was a storm. When she arrived, all smiles and breezy chatter, I let her talk. Then I slid the bank statements across the table. The VIN number circled in red. Liana, I said, my voice calm, but cold. Can you explain this? $68,000 for an SUV. Her face didn't change at first. She laughed, that same soft, reassuring sound. Ellen, you're confused again. That's not what you think. But I was ready. I showed her the receipts, the registration, the trail of charges stretching back months. Her smile faltered, just for a second. She leaned back, crossing her arms. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said. You approved this, Ellen, don't you remember? I didn't flinch. No, Liana, I didn't. Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, her voice sharp now. Ellen, you're not well. You needed me. I was cleaning up your mess. I wanted to believe her, even then. A part of me ached for an explanation that could salvage the years we'd shared. Lake summers, late night talks, family Christmases. But her words were hollow, rehearsed, like lines from a script. I thought of Tom, his voice steady in my memory. Trust your heart, Ellen. My heart was screaming, and it wasn't confused. You need to leave, I said, my voice like steel. She froze, then her face crumpled. Ellen, please, she begged, tears spilling over. You're tearing our family apart. How could you do this to me? But I didn't waver. You did this, I said. Get out. She grabbed her bag, sobbing, and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Filing a fraud report against my own cousin was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I sat in the police station, my hands clasped tight, explaining everything to a kind officer named Officer Ruiz. He listened, took notes, but I could feel the weight of it, the finality. Family split after that. My sister Carol called me, her voice shaking with fury. "Ellen, how could you ruin Liana's life over a misunderstanding? She was helping you." My cousin Donna sent a text. "You're disgusting. Liana's devastated." Others, like Jake, were in disbelief, angry at her. "I can't believe she did this, Aunt Ellen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. But no one could undo the damage, the fracture that ran through our family like a fault line. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing myself, because I gave my trust away too easily. What do you think? Do you think families should be forgiven for financial betrayal? Or is that a line that can never be uncrossed? Let me hear your thoughts below. Healing didn't happen overnight. I started therapy with Dr. Harris, a soft-spoken woman who helped me unravel the knot of pain Liana left behind. She taught me the words for what Liana did: gaslighting, cognitive abuse. Those terms were like keys, unlocking the truth. I wasn't crazy, I was manipulated. We spent weeks talking through the guilt, the shame of letting someone take so much from me. "You were grieving," Dr. Harris said. "You were vulnerable, and she exploited that. That's not your fault." Slowly, I started to forgive myself, to see the strength it took to survive. I took back control of my finances, with help from Sarah, an accountant with a no-nonsense attitude, and a knack for making numbers make sense. We untangled the mess Liana left: missed payments, drained savings, unauthorized credit cards. Sarah set up alerts on my accounts, locked down my credit, taught me how to spot fraud. "You're not helpless, Ellen," she said. "You're learning." I clung to that, to the idea that I could rebuild, that I wasn't defined by Liana's betrayal. I set boundaries too. Carol, Donna, and others who sided with Liana are no longer in my life. Cutting them out hurt, like losing Tom all over again, but it was necessary. I couldn't heal with their judgment, their refusal to see the truth. I leaned on Jake, who became my rock, and Marie, who welcomed me back to book club with a hug and no questions asked. I started to feel like Ellen again, not the shadow Liana had made me. I found strength in sharing my story. I started posting online, raw and honest, about what happened. The responses flooded in, stories of betrayal, resilience, hope. I began giving talks at community centers, warning people about red flags, unexplained charges, dismissive attitudes, pitying looks that hide manipulation. One woman, Linda, approached me after a talk, tears in her eyes. "Your story made me check my husband's accounts," she said. "I found $20,000 missing. Thank you." That moment made every sleepless night, every tear, worth it. I worked with a lawyer, Mark, to set up legal protections, a power of attorney with Jake, fraud alerts, a will that left no room for ambiguity. I learned to spot manipulation, to trust my instincts. Forgetting isn't the enemy. Trusting the wrong person is. Here's a question for you. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a betrayal? What helped you heal? Therapy, friends, something else? Share so others can learn from your strength. But Liana didn't fade quietly. A month after our confrontation, I got a letter from her lawyer claiming I owed her $10,000 for services rendered in managing my finances. It was laughable, but it shook me to my core. I called Mark, my voice trembling. He chuckled, his calm grounding me. "This is a scare tactic, Ellen. She's desperate. We've got this." Still, the audacity burned. How could she keep twisting the truth, even now? Then the calls started. Distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years, began reaching out, their voices laced with accusation. My cousin Donna left a voicemail. "Ellen, how could you do this to Liana? She's family, and you're destroying her." My Aunt Marilyn called, her tone icy. "You've always been dramatic, Ellen. This is low, even for you." Liana was spinning a story, painting herself as the victim, me as the unhinged villain. It felt like a second betrayal, a smear campaign to erase what she'd done. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The betrayal was one thing. This was a calculated effort to rewrite history, but it took a toll. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, dreaming of family gatherings where everyone turned their backs on me. I'd check my phone, expecting another accusatory message. The loneliness was crushing, but I wasn't alone. Jake stood by me, driving over on weekends with pizza and his goofy sense of humor. "Aunt Ellen," he said one night, his eyes serious. "You're tougher than you think. You're not letting her win." I started calling him my honorary son, which made him grin, his lanky frame shaking with laughter. Marie helped too. She'd drag me to coffee shops, book club, even a pottery class where we laughed at our lopsided creations. "You're still you, Ellen," she'd say. Liana didn't take that. Their support kept me afloat, reminded me I had people who saw the real me, not Liana's lies. What would you do if a family member betrayed you, then turned others against you? Would you fight back, confront them, or let it go to protect your peace? Let me know in the comments. The legal battle was a marathon, not a sprint. Mark filed a countersuit against Liana for fraud and theft, armed with a mountain of evidence, bank statements, my notebook, emails where Liana contradicted herself, even texts where she'd dismissed my concerns. Preparing for court was exhausting, like reliving the betrayal on a loop. I'd sit in Mark's office, recounting every detail, my voice breaking as I described the SUV, the gaslighting, the family fallout. "You're doing the right thing," Mark would say, his voice steady. "The truth matters." Liana's lawyer tried to spin it, claiming I'd given her verbal permission for the SUV and other purchases, as if I'd casually agreed to fund her lavish lifestyle. I sat in the courtroom, listening to her lawyer's lies, my hands clenched so tight, my nails dug into my palms. Liana wouldn't meet my eyes, her face a mask of feigned innocence. Mark leaned over, his voice a whisper. "Stay strong, Ellen. The truth is on our side." I nodded, drawing strength from his certainty, from the evidence we'd painstakingly gathered. The depositions were grueling. I had to recount every moment, every late bill, every dismissed question, every time Liana made me doubt my own mind. Her lawyer tried to trip me up, asking, "Mrs. Harper, are you sure you didn't forget these conversations? You've admitted to memory issues, haven't you?" My throat tightened, but I held my ground. "I didn't forget," I said, my voice clear. "I was manipulated." Mark smiled faintly, and I felt a spark of pride. I wasn't the broken woman Liana had tried to make me. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, wasn't swayed by Liana's theatrics. After a year of hearings, motions, and sleepless nights, we won. Liana was ordered to repay the $68,000 plus $15,000 in legal fees and damages. She declared bankruptcy to dodge the payment, but the victory wasn't about the money. It was about justice, about reclaiming my truth. I walked out of the courthouse, the sun warm on my face, feeling lighter than I had in years. Jake was waiting outside, his grin wide. "You did it, Aunt Ellen," he said, pulling me into a hug. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe fully. But the fallout lingered like a bruise. Family reunions stopped. My phone, once buzzing with group chats and invitations, fell silent. I'd overhear whispers about Ellen's drama at the grocery store, see pitying glances from old acquaintances. It stung, but I realized something. I didn't need people who'd believe Liana's lies over my truth. I had Jake, Marie, and a few loyal friends who saw me for who I was. They were my family now, not the ones who'd turned their backs. Have you ever lost family over a betrayal? Did it break you, or did you find new strength in letting go? Share your story below. I'd love to hear how you coped. Looking back, I started to piece together who Liana really was, beyond the cousin I thought I knew. Growing up, she'd always been the center of attention, charming everyone with her quick wit and big plans. But there were hints of something else. Her tendency to borrow money and forget to repay. Her knack for bending the truth to suit her needs. After Tom's funeral, she'd hinted at financial troubles. mentioning a failed business venture and mounting debts. I'd listened, sympathetic, but never imagined she'd see my vulnerability as an opportunity. Understanding her didn't erase the pain, but it helped me see her actions weren't about me. They were about her own desperation, her own flaws. I often wondered what drove her to cross that line. Was it greed, envy, or something deeper? I remembered a conversation years ago when she'd complained about my perfect life with Tom, our cozy home, our steady savings. "You've always had it easy, Ellen," she'd said, her tone sharp before she laughed it off. At the time, I thought she was joking. Now I wasn't so sure. Maybe she saw my grief as a chance to level the playing field, to take what she thought she deserved. I'll never know for certain, and I've learned to live with that uncertainty. What do you think drives someone to betray a loved one? Is it desperation, jealousy, or something else? Let me know your thoughts below. Before the bank email, I wasn't completely blind. There were moments when I tried to push back, to reclaim my footing. I'd called my old friend Marie one night, my voice shaking, and told her about the late bills, the receipts, Liana's dismissals. "Ellen," she said, "that doesn't sound right. You're not forgetful. You need to check your accounts." I wanted to believe her, but fear stopped me. Fear of what I'd find, fear of confronting Liana. Another time, I drove to the bank, determined to ask questions, but the teller's confused look and Liana's name on my accounts made me falter. "It's probably fine," I told myself, driving home in silence. Those moments of clarity were fleeting, drowned out by Liana's relentless gaslighting. But they showed me I hadn't entirely lost myself. Have you ever had a moment where you almost uncovered a betrayal but hesitated? What held you back? Fear, doubt, or something else? Share below. The aftermath of the lawsuit was a strange mix of triumph and loss. I threw myself into rebuilding my life, starting with small steps. I reconnected with Marie's book club, where the women welcomed me with hugs and no judgment. We'd sit around her dining table, debating novels and sipping wine. And for those hours, I felt like Ellen again. Opinionated, curious, alive. I started gardening, planting tulips and roses in the backyard Tom and I had loved. Each bloom felt like a promise, a reminder that I could grow again, too. Jake became my anchor. He'd show up with takeout or a bad action movie, making me laugh until my sides ached. One evening, as we ate pizza on the couch, he said, "You know, Aunt Ellen, you're like a superhero. You fought a villain and won." I laughed, but his words stuck with me. I wasn't a superhero, but I was a fighter, and that was enough. I also reached out to my old teaching colleague, Susan, who'd retired a few years before me. We'd lost touch, but she answered my call with warmth, as if no time had passed. Over coffee, I told her everything, and she listened, her eyes soft with understanding. "You're stronger than you know," she said, "and you're not alone." Susan invited me to her knitting group, a quirky mix of retirees and young moms. I was terrible at knitting. My scarves were lumpy disasters, but the laughter and camaraderie stitched me back together, bit by bit. How have friends or community helped you heal from a betrayal? What small moments made a big difference? Let me know below. My biggest transformation came through advocacy. I volunteered at a senior center, teaching workshops on financial literacy and fraud prevention. I'd stand in front of a room full of gray-haired strangers, sharing my story, every painful detail, every hard-won lesson. At first, my voice shook, but with each talk, I grew bolder. People would approach me afterward, sharing their own stories of betrayal, their own fears. One man, George, told me he'd caught his son draining his savings. "Your talk gave me the guts to confront him," he said, his voice thick. Those moments were my fuel, proof that my pain could help others. I started a blog, Ellen's Truth, where I wrote about spotting scams, setting boundaries, and rebuilding after betrayal. The comments poured in, hundreds of stories, each one a thread in a tapestry of resilience. A woman named Carla wrote, "Your story saved me. I found $50,000 missing from my mom's account because of you." I cried reading that, not out of sadness, but gratitude. My blog grew into a small online community, a place where survivors shared tips, encouragement, and hope. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. What's the most impactful way you've turned pain into purpose? Have you helped others through your experiences? Share below to inspire someone else. 3 years later, I'm not the Ellen I was. I'm not the grieving widow who signed away her trust, nor the shadow who doubted her own mind. I'm Ellen Harper, fighter, advocate, friend. I volunteer twice a week, tend my garden, and laugh with Jake over his terrible taste in movies. I've traveled a bit. Last summer, I visited the Grand Canyon, something Tom and I always planned to do. Standing at the edge, wind in my hair, I felt free, like I'd finally reclaimed my life. I think of Liana sometimes, wondering if she ever felt guilt, if she's still spinning stories to justify what she did. I heard through Jake that she moved away, started over somewhere new. I don't wish her harm, but I don't need her apology. I found peace in my own strength, in the life I've built from the ashes of her betrayal. Tom would be proud. He'd sling an arm around me, his eyes twinkling, and say, "Ellen, you're a fighter, always were." One final question. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from a betrayal? Maybe it's about trust, resilience, or forgiveness. Share it below to light the way for someone else. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been a long, winding road to tell it, full of tears and triumphs. If it helps even one person spot a red flag, trust their gut, or start healing, it's worth every word. Keep trusting yourself. You're stronger than you know.